The Buffalo Bills defense is under fire, and honestly, it's not hard to see why. Through the first part of the season, what was once a calling card for this team, a tough, smart, disciplined defensive unit, has become one of its biggest question marks. And the most frustrating part? The issues aren't new, but the reasons behind them have shifted in a way that leaves fans with more concerns than clarity. Let's start with the run defense. Bills fans have been complaining about this for what feels like half a decade. This isn't the first time we're having this conversation, and it probably won't be the last. But this year hits different. In previous seasons, it was easy to say, well, they're playing light boxes because they're daring teams to run. It's part of the scheme. They're prioritizing pass defense. That was the trade-off, and when it worked, it made sense. But in 2025, that explanation doesn't hold the same weight. The Bills are still getting gashed in the run game, but this time they're not playing light. They're not just sitting back in nickel and inviting the run like they used to. They've actually shifted toward more base defense, more bodies up front, and they're still getting sliced apart. Why is that? It starts in the trenches. The Bills are relying heavily on young, inexperienced defensive tackles because injuries have absolutely decimated their depth. Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver, your two most reliable big men in the middle, have barely been on the field together. And when they're not, it shows. Instead, you've got rookies and practice squad-caliber guys logging major snaps. Players like T.J. Sanders, Deion Walker, and Zion Logue have been thrown into the fire. And while they've shown flashes here and there, you're asking way too much of them, too early. This isn't just next man up. This is next man up and suddenly playing 40 snaps a game. That lack of consistency and experience up front has a domino effect on the second level. Linebackers like Terrell Bernard, who came into the season with high expectations, are now playing behind an unstable wall that forces them to read and react faster, to take on more responsibility, and to clean up more mistakes. And Bernard, for all the splash plays he can create, is a high-variance player himself. That's the thing. He'll make the occasional game-changing stop or timely blitz, but he'll also miss a tackle or fill the wrong gap. That's the nature of his game. So now you've got a high-variance linebacker playing behind high-variance defensive tackles. That's a recipe for chaos. And it's not just about the defensive line and linebackers. The tackling has been flat-out poor. Not just inconsistent, poor. There are way too many plays where the initial contact doesn't bring the runner down, and teams are getting extra yardage they have no business gaining. What's especially frustrating is that even when the D-line holds its ground, when they're not being blown off the ball, the second and third levels still aren't cleaning things up. This is no longer a schematic issue. This is a fundamental one. Take the game against Atlanta, for example. The Bills gave up a massive 81-yard touchdown run to Bijan Robinson. You hear the phrase, 8-man front, and assume they're loading the box to stop the run, right? And they were. Sean McDermott even said it himself. They had the numbers, but they still got creased. Why? Because guys weren't in the right spots. Because the tackling wasn't there. Because even with the right call, the execution fell short. You can tell this coaching staff is trying to adjust. They're not just sticking to the script and hoping things turn around. But at some point, adjustments need to work. You can't keep making changes and still get gashed for 5, 6, 7 yards a carry. And look, when over 60% of your defensive tackle snaps are being played by rookies or guys who were on the practice squad last year, it's going to catch up to you. That's not an excuse. It's just reality. Now, let's talk about the safeties, because that's another area where the Bills went from strength to serious concern in just a year. Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde were the foundation of this secondary for years. Calm, veteran presences who always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. But now, you've got Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop, and the drop-off has been hard to ignore. Cole Bishop is basically a rookie. He's athletic, aggressive, and flashes real potential. So you live with some mistakes, right? He's learning. He's growing. You can accept a little variance there. But Taylor Rapp? That's supposed to be your steady vet. And instead, he's the one making costly errors, especially in the tackling department. Last year, Rapp was a sure-handed finisher. This year, he's missing tackles, biting on play fakes, and looking lost in space at times. That's not what the Bills signed up for. And maybe we're starting to see the truth about Taylor Rapp. Maybe he's not the stabilizing force many assumed he would be. Maybe he only looked steady when he was playing next to someone who could carry the load. Maybe last year's version of Rapp, who played well in stretches, was the product of having someone like Damar Hamlin next to him, keeping things in order. But now that he's paired with another young, high-variance player in Bishop, the cracks are showing. It's a lesson in assumptions. We assume rookies get better every year. We assume veterans stay the same. But neither is guaranteed. Progress isn't linear, and performance isn't static. Just because a guy looked solid in 2024 doesn't mean he's going to be solid again in 2025. And just because a rookie shows promise doesn't mean he's ready to anchor a defense. When you add all this up, the youth on the D-line, the inconsistencies at linebacker, the tackling woes, the regression in the secondary, you start to see why the Bills' defense feels broken. And what makes it worse is that the scheme itself might be stale. They're running a lot of the same concepts they've leaned on for years. That wasn't a problem when you had elite veterans executing those concepts at a high level. But now, with younger players and less execution, it all falls apart. And that leads us to the zone coverage issues, specifically spot drop zone. It's been brutal to watch at times. Opposing quarterbacks are getting free access throws all day long. The Bills' defenders are dropping into zones, not reading routes, and leaving massive soft spots in the coverage. That's how a guy like Drake London can feast. That's how quarterbacks can pick you apart with quick passes and minimal risk. You're just giving them layups over and over. It's not just frustrating, it's predictable. And when an offense knows exactly what you're going to give them, they're going to take it. Again, and again, and again. This defense needs more than a patch. It needs a philosophical refresh. And if that's not coming, then the execution needs to rise dramatically. Because right now, the two are canceling each other out. And until that changes, the ceiling for this team is capped. One of the biggest questions surrounding this defense right now is whether the Bills actually can turn things around. There's no doubt that injuries have hit hard, and some of the most crucial ones have come in places that directly impact the system the team is trying to run. But even with that, the sense of concern isn't just about who's hurt. It's about whether this defensive philosophy, even at full strength, is still built to hold up against today's offenses. Let's go back to what's happening in coverage. The Bills are using more spot drop zone than we've seen in recent years, and it's exposing them in the worst possible ways. Spot drop means defenders are dropping to predetermined areas of the field, essentially covering grass, instead of matching up with receivers and reacting based on routes. The goal is to keep everything in front of you and make the offense earn every yard. In theory, that sounds fine, but in practice, it creates too many soft spots, especially when you don't have the personnel to close space quickly and tackle reliably. Take the Atlanta game again. Drake London ate this team alive in the first half, not because he was running intricate, hard-to-cover routes, but because the Bills were giving him 10 yards of cushion. He'd motion into the slot, release against zone, settle between defenders, and catch the ball in rhythm with no resistance. It was easy. Over and over again, the same play worked, and the defense had no answer. That's not just a player issue. That's a scheme problem. And when you look at it from a wider lens, it feels like the Bills' defense is stuck between two worlds, the one they've been living in for years and the one the rest of the NFL is rapidly evolving into. Now, the natural question is, why are they playing this way? Why continue to lean into covered philosophies that clearly aren't working? One theory is that they simply don't trust their corners to hold up in match coverage. And if that's the case, it's easy to see why. Tre'Davious White hasn't been the same player since his injury, and while the team clearly hoped to reduce his role this season, maybe even phase him out entirely, injuries to other players have forced him back into more meaningful snaps. The plan was likely to roll with rookie Maxwell Hairston, a player with elite zone instincts and physicality, but his injury forced the Bills to dip further into their depth chart than they were ready for. Players like Jamarcus Singer and Dorian Strong weren't supposed to be playing major snaps. But here we are, and here's where it gets even more complicated. The Bills didn't just build their defense on physical talent. They built it around cohesion and trust. Guys who knew the system, veterans who played fast because they didn't need to think. That's not the case anymore. The current version of this defense is built on young, raw talent, with a few veterans who aren't playing at the level they used to. That's a dangerous combination, especially when the scheme hasn't adapted to fit the new reality. And it's not just about execution. It's about how this team is being constructed. Defensive team building has been a hot topic around Buffalo lately, especially as fans start to question whether it's time to pivot away from the current model. Under Sean McDermott, this defense has followed a clear blueprint: build depth on the defensive line, prioritize versatility in the secondary, and draft players who fit specific athletic and character profiles. It worked for a long time, but now the cracks are showing. And the longer they go without changing the approach, the more those cracks look like foundational flaws. Look at the investment strategy. This team keeps doubling and tripling down on interior defensive line prospects who fit a very specific mold. High motor, athletic, splash play potential, but also highly volatile. Think of guys like Deion Walker, TJ Sanders, even Jordan Phillips before them. These are boom or bust players. And the problem is, when all your interior options fall into that category, you're living with wild week-to-week swings in performance. And when you stack that behind linebackers who are similarly inconsistent, you get the exact mess we're seeing right now. There's a metaphor that came up in the original podcast: the idea of a relationship where both people are financially reckless. Someone has to be the anchor. Someone has to say, "We can't spend that right now." On this defense, nobody's being the responsible one. Everyone is rolling the dice. Everyone is hoping someone else cleans up the mistake. But that's not how elite defenses work. You need balance. You need players you can count on to do their job exactly as expected, even if it's not flashy. Right now, the Bills have too many guys chasing splash plays and not enough just doing the dirty work. Even Taron Johnson, a player the coaching staff has historically trusted in run support and zone coverage, hasn't looked like the same guy. His downhill aggression used to be one of the reasons the Bills could play nickel so often without getting gashed. But now, even he's missing tackles and showing signs of wear. And that's why some are even starting to argue the Bills might be better off going back to nickel full-time instead of this heavier base look. Because at least in nickel, you're putting Taron Johnson on the field, a guy you still trust more than your third linebacker. That's the other tricky part. The move to more base defense this season has been obvious. They're playing it at a higher rate than ever before. But that might be more about necessity than choice. The interior line being so inconsistent forces you to put more bodies in the box. It's not because they suddenly want to become a power defense. It's because they have no other way to stop the run with the personnel they've got. And when you build your defense on speed and hybrid cover players, it's hard to shift into a smash-mouth identity without completely compromising what you do best. Before we dive back in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest Buffalo Bills updates straight to your screen. And hey, don't hold back. Let us know your thoughts on today's news down in the comments. Whispers have begun circulating in the NFL universe, and they're the kind of rumors that make fans drop their popcorn mid-bite. According to sources close to the league, RASHEE, the young Kansas City wideout known for his explosive speed and sharp route running, is reportedly willing to make a jaw-dropping request: a trade of Patrick Mahomes for Josh Allen. Yes, you read that correctly. The whispers suggest that Rice is tired of playing in the shadows of Mahomes' superstar status and sees Allen as the quarterback who can truly elevate his game to its apocalyptic potential. If this were true, the implications would be seismic. The AFC would erupt into chaos overnight. Bills Mafia and Chiefs Kingdom would instantly become rival factions in a league-wide chess match, each move scrutinized and every snap dissected by analysts who thrive on drama. Imagine Rice lining up alongside Allen in Buffalo, stretching defenses vertically while Allen unleashes his arm in ways Mahomes might not. The synergy could be catastrophic for opposing defenses, sending shockwaves through fantasy leagues, betting markets, and highlight reels alike. Of course, some insiders warned that this is just chatter, the kind of locker room rumor that grows louder with every retweet. But the fact that the idea is even whispered in public circles tells you how restless Rice is becoming. Sources say he's been quietly working on chemistry with Allen in private workouts, teasing teammates and coaches alike, fueling speculation that a seismic shift in the AFC hierarchy is brewing. Mahomes, for his part, is reportedly aware but unfazed, focusing on the grind while the rumor mill spins. If the trade somehow materializes, the NFL landscape would be permanently altered. The Chiefs would need to reinvent their offensive identity, while the Bills could become a supercharged juggernaut capable of leveling any opponent with a single drive. Fans are already debating on social media. Is this the dawn of a new dynasty, or just an apocalyptic fantasy fueled by imagination and ambition? Whatever the truth, one thing is certain. RASHEE Rice just turned the AFC into a ticking time bomb, and everyone is watching the fuse burn. That's a wrap for now. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of all things Buffalo Bills, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. See you in the next update.